Today we're exploring Ubuntu 7.10 Gutsy Gibbon, which is from I forget what date. Nice. I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. Ah, beep. That was loud. Good day folks, Jordan here. Welcome to another software overview video. Today we're exploring Ubuntu 7.10 Gutsy Gibbon, released on the 18th of October 2007. Now this release, being that it's just one of those .10 releases, doesn't exactly have much new in the way of features, but there are some things that are noteworthy that might be worth exploring, potentially. At least I know for one in particular that I can think of off the top of my head. First of which, there's new fast desktop search. Now, back in this time period, search was a pretty big deal. Of course, it all started out with Steve Jobs announcing that OS X Tiger had fast desktop search called Spotlight. That was a big deal back in the day. And then, of course, Microsoft followed suit pretty closely thereafter with Windows Vista having fast desktop search, although it was in the start menu, but nonetheless, the same concept prevailed. And now, Ubuntu's playing catch-up, and it has its own fast desktop search, which we will hopefully get to test out in this video. I don't know how much we're going to do it, but at least I'll show you where it's located, so that way you know, hey, that's where the search thing was located at. There's also an addition of full NTFS support, and I think the reason why this is an important point to make out is because if you have watched my Ubuntu 7.04 video, you'll know that on the first machine that I tried to install it on, which had an NTFS formatted hard drive, it had difficulty dealing with the partitions on that drive. However, it might have just been a symptom of a bad hard drive. I don't know, because as we all saw in that video also, we were able to get it to install onto another test computer that also had an NTFS formatted hard drive, and it worked fine. But at least I believe what they mean by full NTFS support is full read and write support, not just full read support. I think that's what that means, but I could be wrong on that. There's also apparently a graphical Xorg configuration tool. I'm not entirely sure what that configures in particular, because of course that has to do with X Windows, which runs the GNOME desktop environment and all the Linux graphical environments, or at least as far as I know, a good majority of them. I'm not too tech savvy into Linux, so don't shame me too much for not knowing this stuff, but I know for a fact that X Windows and Xorg, they kind of relate together. That's just what controls the GNOME desktop environment, or what Ubuntu uses as its desktop environment manager. I don't know. Don't slam on me too much for that, for not knowing. There's also a Firefox plugin manager, because at this time Firefox had plugin support, and thus you needed a way to manage it. I think this was Firefox 3.0. I could be wrong on that. We'll find out once we start this up. There's also a revamped printing system, which uses PDF printing by default, which was also a big deal because I believe Mac OS X, I don't know when they started doing full PDF support. I think it was in Panther, but I could be wrong. It could have been Tiger as well. Not too sure by that. One of the biggest features was fast user switching, which was first introduced in Microsoft's Windows XP in 2001, and then shortly thereafter, I believe it was OS X Panther, that Apple followed suit with fast user switching. So now it's Ubuntu's turn, I guess, to follow the suite of fast user switching, so it started in this particular release. We'll explore that in this video. There's also a security framework called AppArmor. I'm not sure if that's something we can actually look at, but at least it's there. And finally, one of the bigger things was the Compiz desktop effects, which were, I think, in this release called Compiz Fusion. They're enabled by default, which is powered by OpenGL. I don't know if that's going to work in VMware, but we will give it a try once we get it installed. Now, one quirk of running this in a virtual machine, which it does work in a virtual machine, thank God for this video, is that, well, the screen resolution does tend to get a little fuzzy, so I'm going to have to start this up immediately in full screen, which isn't a big deal for many people, but it is because it's, I'm on a Retina display, so that kind of sucks. Also, one thing that's interesting is there's an option to install the driver update CD. I don't know if this was in 7.04 because I wasn't able to check. And I also don't know if this OEM install for manufacturers was actually there in 7.04 because, again, I couldn't install it in a virtual machine, and the way that you installed it on an actual computer was a little bit different compared to the VM, so I didn't have this nice menu as you saw in that video. So, I don't know. I guess for kicks and giggles, we'll try the OEM install real quick. I think this starts the setup in text mode, but I could be wrong. But we will find out. Obviously, if you were a computer software manufacturer or something like that, or you were in a big company like Dell or HP or Acer or whatever you have you for the time, like netbooks and Linux computers are on the rise, you could use this option to preload Ubuntu onto said computer. I think that's how this works. I'm not too sure. It could be pretty much the identical setup process to that of the standard Ubuntu setup process. Don't quote me on that. And what do you know? It looks like it's doing the same screen resolution quirk that it was doing when I was just testing this thing earlier. So that's nice. Anyway, as you can see up in the top right corner, there's a button that says Live Session User, which obviously is the area where the fast user switching takes place. But I believe first things first, let's just go ahead and get this installed so that way everything's all set up. Now, obviously, oh, interesting, yeah, OEM mode for manufacturers only. So yeah, I am going to have to restart this to do the setup. But essentially, the setup process is identical to that of 7.04, so you're not going to be missing out on much. It's just that I was an idiot. I booted the OEM mode, so I'm going to actually restart it and do the full setup because I was just wondering if there's any differences between that. So I will be right back once this is installed. So while Ubuntu 7.10 installs in the background, let's explore the website from the time, since this seems to be a trend that I do in these videos now. So the website definitely got a little bit of an overhaul. Now, I will actually show, there's a pretty neat little animation that comes in when you load the website here. 7 generations of innovation, 7 generations of quality. It shows their awards from PC World. 7 generations of Ubuntu. And that's pretty much all there is to say. Just a basic little HTML or maybe a JavaScript or a GIF or something. I don't know what kind of animation they used for this. I would assume that it's a GIF because it says save image. But maybe that's just the final image that they throw up once the animation's finished. I'm not too sure. Ubuntu 7.10. The latest releases of Ubuntu for Desktop Server available today for download. Yay. It's not that latest anymore. I love the little pictogram they use on the desktop edition as being a Lenovo ThinkPad. That's pretty funny. And of course, they talk about the Ubuntu promise down here. One interesting Ubuntu edition that I did not know ever existed was Gobuntu. And as you can see, has a different icon. It's kind of like the recycling icon. I have downloaded an ISO of this, and we will explore that in a later video because I think it's pretty interesting. I believe the version number was 8.04. It was based on Ubuntu 8.04 long-term support, at least the version that I was able to find. I think at this point they didn't have a... Oh no, they did have a download for it. I believe the only versions of Gobuntu that were ever made were 7.10 and 8.04. I think those are the only ones. Otherwise, Xubuntu, Edubuntu, and Kubuntu, those all are still made today. They just use different desktop environments. But I think Gobuntu is discontinued because what it was supposed to be, just to give you a brief explanation here in this video, was it was supposed to be a version of Ubuntu that was strictly using open source and free software. So that's basically all it was. So it was pretty short-lived because, well, that's what the full version of Ubuntu has. There's really no point in making a separate one that just strictly had free software because that was the whole point of Ubuntu in the first place. So kind of a strange off-the-side, off-the-cuff release of Ubuntu, or some kind of side distribution of Ubuntu that I think is worth exploring in a different video. But otherwise, the website, it's a facelifted website. It looks pretty nice. The desktop edition description page here, once it loads, is a little more laid out, a little different. Some of the pictures are the same. This is a new picture where they show all the different languages that Ubuntu comes with out of the box, including what looks to be Russian, English, Arabic, and I believe that's Chinese and Japanese. Well, that might just be strictly Chinese. I'm not entirely sure what that is, whether it be traditional or simplified Chinese. I can't tell. But anyway. But otherwise, they're still using the same picture from Ubuntu 6.06 LTS on their website, which I don't know why, because there's a couple of major differences between 6.06 and 7.10, But whatever. I mean, I guess it serves its purpose. It's just a little thing showing the desktop, which at the time, GNOME or Genome hadn't really changed too much. So, I don't know. Anyway, back on to the video showing Ubuntu 7.10. And here we are at the desktop of Ubuntu 7.10. Now, when I started this initially, I got an error saying that the desktop could not be loaded properly for some reason, and it had like this fallback classic theme enabled. I'm not sure if that was just because of the awkward screen resolution that it was initially set to, which it obviously showed on the login screen, but whatever. But anywho, we are kind of sort of working now. Unfortunately, and this is a pretty sad thing, I was going to go check out the visual effects, but as it turns out, I think this is just because VMware Tools is not installed. I go to enable the appearance effects, any one of them, and all I get is an error message that just says that the desktop effects cannot be enabled, and I cannot enable them. So what I'm going to do to try to combat this, I'm going to try installing this on a physical computer, and at the end of the video, we'll see if we can get the visual effects here to work. I'm going to try my ThinkPad T43 once again. I'm going to see if that can cooperate, but if not, we'll use the T42 since that works with this operating system. So, let's get into it. So, what should we look at first? Well, obviously I can't check out the visual effects, which is pretty upsetting. I don't know why that's not working, but I think that's just, again, due to the lack of, well, the VMware tools. But I'm not sure if there's an obvious way to check the add-ons. I think this is it. This is your little add-on manager, so this just lets you check your add-ons, so Ubuntu Firefox, and you can set themes and such. I believe this is actually not Ubuntu, Firefox, yes. It's not 3.0, it's 2.0.0.6. So I thought it was 3.0, but then again, it's not that new yet. I think Firefox 3 came out like 08 or something like that. Anyway, some of these icons I want to say have changed. Like the one for Pigeon definitely changed because that's new. So remember in an earlier video where I talked about the text editor called Tomboy? Well, it turns out there it is. It's now available. I didn't see it in 7.04, and maybe because I wasn't paying attention, but as you can see, now you can create a new note. And not too shabby, I suppose. I don't know why that was hidden, but that wasn't there as far as I could tell in the last release of Ubuntu, the 7.04, so that's interesting. I believe graphics got a different icon too, but I could be wrong on that. This definitely got a different icon. I don't know if that pointed that out in 7.04, and maybe it was the same in 7.04, but it definitely in this, I've noticed that the icon for the CD-DVD creator is new, so that's certainly something different. Alright, so let's go see if we can set ourselves a new user account. I think you have to go under either its preferences or administration. I think it's under administration, then users and groups, and obviously you gotta verify your password for this. Of course you do. But I believe in here we can just set ourselves a new user. We're just going to set a username of test.
Real name is test user. I don't freaking know. We'll just set a password of, test123 with capital T. So that way it makes everything lovely and happy and all that good stuff.
So now, I'm not sure if it's going to work right away, but we should just be able to... Oh, that's where the search is. Well, now we know where the search is at. It's that little USB thing up here, which lets you search. I thought that was the fast user switching icon, but I'm wrong because that's up here. So as you can see, test user is now available. And if we click on that, I don't think the user's... Oh, there it goes. Okay. So... Okay, now it just takes us to the login screen, which now sets the wrong screen resolution, which I don't know why it does that, but it does. And now... we are now logged in as test user. And for some reason, now test user has gone all the way over here. I'm not sure why that is, but whatever. And then if I click on my name, it goes back and obviously changes the screen resolution back to the correct screen resolution. This one requires a password to switch back over, and obviously we're back in the wrong screen resolution. Isn't that really annoying? I find that super annoying that Linux always has to change the screen resolution on a user-by-user basis, and now it's back on the right screen resolution. Like, give me a break. But anyway, as you can see, it's not elegant, but it works, and it gets the job done, and all that fun stuff. Now, I don't know if there's anything else that we can really take a look at. I suppose what we could probably do is demonstrate the search, because why not? So I'm going to search for backgrounds and see if it'll find a background. Oh, well, interesting. Got Amazon, got Answers.com, eBay, Google, Wikipedia, Yahoo. Is there a way to, search the hard drive? That's what I'd like to know. Because clearly... I mean, this is something that, you can search on Google. Let's just search for Ubuntu with Google, for example, and then what it'll do is open up Firefox, and I don't have the network set up, so it's not going to load Google, but it would theoretically load Google as a search and do your search and bring up your result. So you can pretty much get the gist of it. It's kind of like Sherlock way back in the days of the classic Mac OS and early Mac OS 10 that had Sherlock. You can think of it something like that, only, a lot more, I guess, simplistic and not nearly as full featured as Sherlock, but whatever. I think Tetravex is a different game. I think that's new. I have no idea how to play Tetravex or whatever that game is based upon, so we'll move on. There's obviously the obligatory mines. Nibbles, that must be like, worm. What is it? Snake. That's what I'm thinking it is. Or is it just actually worms? I think it's just snake, though. Yeah. And I play as the, which one do I play as? Okay. That is, confusing. So I play as the red worm, in this case. And you have to dash to get to the food as quick as you can without running into the other worms. Interesting. And they all have lives. I'm obviously down to 8 lives now. But I suppose if you're one to play worms, or worms, I keep saying worms, snake, there we go. There you go. Built in. Interesting. There's a game called Tally. What is this? Interesting. I almost wonder, is this like Yahtzee? This must be like Yahtzee. That's what I would think, because it has 1 through 6, has all the other things, but I don't see like the Yahtzee in there. I guess that's 5 of a kind. They're just renaming what they call the Yahtzee as the 5 of a kind. Yeah, I like playing Yahtzee. It's a very basic form of Yahtzee, but hey, it's still pretty fun to play nonetheless. But I suppose that would probably bore some people out. But then again, I'm just a fanatic for Yahtzee, so whatever. Lastly, I want to see, is there any wallpapers? No, it just takes you to this menu. So I think what I've shown you is really all that's different with Ubuntu 7.10. I can't think of anything else that would normally be different, but I think for now, that pretty much wraps up this video. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. Ah, beep. That was loud. And I will see you all in the next video. So I haven't even installed the operating system yet, and I get this funny message saying, the battery in your computer may have been recalled by Lenovo, and you may be at risk. I've never seen this come up on any Ubuntu install. That's just hilarious. And the reason why I say that is because there actually was a pretty big recall on Lenovo ThinkPad batteries, and the T43 fell underneath that thing. So did my Lenovo ThinkPad T60. It was under the same exact thing as well. It had a battery recall. So that's very interesting that that's coming up. Let's see what happens when I connect to the internet and visit the recall website. That's very interesting. I want to try that. Alright, we are connected. Let's see what happens when we load the recall website. I doubt it's going to load because, yeah, there's already certificate error. Oh no, we seem to be experiencing site issues. I think it's Firefox rather than your site, but I don't know, that's just me. But it seems like so far so good with the desktop effects. Let's go into Appearance here. Now let's go into Visual Effects. It seems as if normal is automatically selected. Now this laptop has an ATI Mobility Radeon X300 in it, which I believe is just a 64 meg dedicated graphics card in this laptop. So let's see if Extra will let it work any better. It worked fine on the T42 with apparently all the effects enabled, so let's see what we got now. Yes! I still cannot help myself when it comes to these desktop effects. These are just so tacky with the whole washboard effect. That is just so neat. I don't know why I like it a lot, but I do. That's just really cool. Just do the old washboard effect. I remember when Zorin OS had that at a time or two. I thought that was just the funniest thing, or the coolest thing, actually, more rather. But it's still really neat to see all these old desktop effects, and they run really good on this. Like, that is just so cool. Alright, well that's enough of that. You've seen the desktop effects. They now work on an actual computer. So, there you go. So, that's pretty much all there is to say when it comes to the well, the experience of Ubuntu 7.10 on an actual computer with the effects turned on, it seems to work. And they seem to work really well at that. And apparently I just triggered the multiple desktop function, and I don't know how I just did it. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, that's pretty cool. They all seem to work. Definitely triggering the cooling fan, though. I think the CPU and the GPU, they run on one heatsink, so that's probably why the fan's spinning up. Anyway, that's it for this. So I'm going to go ahead and shut her down, and beep. And end the video now. So now, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next one.